The scent of wood smoke and cheap brandy hangs thick in the air, clinging to the shadows of a 19th-century Russian tavern. Here, in a stifling corner, Dostoevsky plants a seed, a parable within a masterpiece. It's a story within a story, a conversation between brothers, Ivan, the cynic, and Alyosha, the believer. And it begins with a question so unsettling, it has haunted thinkers for centuries. What if the greatest gift imaginable isn't wanted? Imagine Jesus, not distributing bread or enforcing laws, but offering something far more radical, absolute freedom. Not the freedom to vote or speak, but a freedom of the soul, a boundless choice between good and evil, with no guarantees, no heavenly rewards, no divine nudges. He trusted humanity to choose love voluntarily, without the crutch of miracles. He relinquished control, stepping back to see what they would do with it. But this freedom isn't a gift, it's a terrifying psychological burden. It's standing alone on a windswept peak, no map to guide you, no voices to tell you which way to turn. It's the crushing weight of individual responsibility, the knowledge that every decision, every action, shapes not only your fate, but the fate of all those around you. And most people, Dostoevsky argues, cannot bear the thin, freezing air of that summit. The Church, observing this human fragility, would step in, not to condemn freedom itself, but to correct Jesus' disastrous error. In 16th-century Seville, under the shadow of the Inquisition, the Grand Inquisitor begins constructing a new order, one built not on the shaky foundation of free will, but on three things Jesus explicitly rejected: mystery, miracle, and authority. But what was the Church hoping to achieve by replacing freedom with order? Then, impossibly, Jesus returns, not in glory, but as a humble wanderer, healing the sick and raising the dead. The crowds rejoice, but the Grand Inquisitor sees only a threat. With chilling efficiency, he arrests the Son of God, plunging him into a pitch-black dungeon. But why, after centuries, does this story, a story within a story, continue to resonate so deeply? Is it a warning, an accusation, or something more? An accusation, or something more? The air of 16th-century Seville is a living thing, thick with the scent of laurel, lemon, and the acrid tang of burning wood. It clings to the cobblestones, a constant reminder of the auto da fe, the public burnings of those deemed heretics. It's in this atmosphere of fear and religious fervour that the Grand Inquisitor began to forge his vision. He was not a cartoon villain, consumed by malice, but a man convinced he possessed the key to human happiness, an order born of a terrible logic. Jesus, he argued, made a fundamental mistake. Instead of ensuring basic needs, enforcing laws, he offered a treacherous gift, the agonizing burden of individual choice. To alleviate this burden, the Grand Inquisitor declared, the Church would embrace the very forces Jesus rejected in the wilderness: mystery, miracle, and authority. Not as divine gifts, but as instruments, levers to gently guide the masses. Imagine controlling not through fear, but through manufactured wonder, crafted certainty. He framed it as an act of supreme love, a twisted, paternalistic devotion. The elite, the Inquisitor reasoned, must shield the common folk from the harsh realities of the universe, from the agony of making their own choices. It was a benevolent lie, a comfort blanket woven from illusions, ensuring stability and obedience. But the cost of this manufactured peace was steep. Individuality withered, critical thought vanished, every decision became a carefully choreographed step in a predetermined dance. The illusion of happiness masked a profound spiritual poverty, a slow, silent erosion of the very soul. Now, years later, the architect of this captivity feels the foundations tremble. Jesus has returned, not to challenge, not to condemn, but simply to be. He moves among the people, a silent threat to the meticulously constructed order. The world he tried to save now faces an unexpected reckoning. The silence is heavier than any condemnation. The air hangs thick smoke, sweat, and the scent of despair clinging to the damp stone. Here, beneath Seville's tribunal, Jesus stands, the only sound the drip, 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 drip of water echoing in the blackness. He offers no argument, no defense, no plea. His silence isn't meekness, it's a void, an unsettling space that threatens to swallow the Inquisitor's furious words. Then, a voice sharp, brittle, resonating with the conviction of absolute authority, begins to unravel. The Grand Inquisitor doesn't accuse, he explains. He speaks of humanity's inherent weakness, of their desperate need for guidance, even if that guidance leads them to their own destruction. He doesn't see himself as a tyrant, but as a shepherd, a necessary evil keeping the flock from tearing itself apart. Truth, he claims, is a luxury humanity cannot afford. It's a fragile thing, easily shattered by the anxieties of choice. Better, he believes, to offer the comfort of illusion, a carefully curated reality where suffering is minimized and obedience is rewarded. It's a bargain struck between power and the masses, a sacrifice of truth for the sake of a manufactured peace. But the silence persists. Jesus doesn't debate, doesn't refute. His stillness isn't a lack of power, but a deliberate act, a refusal to engage in a futile argument. It implies a truth far deeper than any words could convey. That ultimate power lies not in coercion, but in unwavering patience, in unconditional love, and in the quiet assurance that even the darkest nights eventually yield to dawn. What single, unspoken message does his silence transmit to the Inquisitor? The lantern's light flickers, catching the dust motes dancing in the chill air. For decades he's woven a tapestry of fear, convincing humanity it requires his guidance. Now he waits, anticipating a challenge, a rebuttal, a spark of divine defiance. But it doesn't come. It is not a declaration of war, nor a torrent of righteous anger. It's a single, devastating act, a kiss pressed against the Inquisitor's cheek. A touch that bypasses logic, that short-circuits centuries of carefully constructed dogma. It's the whisper of grace, an intrusion of the divine into a carefully controlled domain. The kiss doesn't conquer, it seeds. It plants a tiny, insidious question in the heart of the most ruthless man in Seville. A spark, impossible to extinguish, ignites within him. He feels a tremor in the foundations of his carefully constructed edifice. It's not a victory for Jesus. It's a subtle, but irreversible, crack in the armor of the Inquisitor's soul. He turns, not with defiance, but with an almost bewildered resignation. The rigid lines of his face soften just slightly. "Go," he commands, his voice devoid of its usual steel. "Leave this place, and never return." The iron door clangs open, releasing Jesus back into the darkness of the city and the shadows of uncertainty. Dostoevsky's parable isn't a prophecy of immediate revolution. It's a testament to a patience that transcends human comprehension. A silent, unwavering faith in the potential for awakening, however distant. God isn't forcing humanity towards enlightenment. He's waiting, enduring the accusations, trusting that one day the doors of perception will open wide. But will that day ever truly arrive?